Hey there, Albino238 here again. And this is going to be a response to neverchris's video on his top 10 favorite video games of 2010. I've only played about 8 titles that came out last year, so this is going to be a top 5. These are probably the top 5 titles that I could think of. So I'll start off with one game that I do agree with him on, and that's Donkey Kong Country Returns. I still haven't played through the rest of this game. I still haven't gotten past the second level yet. But so far, it's definitely very good. You know, it definitely brings Donkey Kong back to the platforming roots that we all came to know and love in the Super Nintendo game. There are some moments of now the challenge is very high in this game, but some moments. Well, one of my big complaints isn't so much the challenge, it's somehow it's just, but it's more or less the tedium of the game. Sometimes there are some parts in the game that can be rather tedious. You know, some of the challenges can be a little, it can be kind of, kind of a pain to get through. Even after you learn how to get through it, it's still kind of a pain because you can, because of how frequently you can screw up, And I have to say the rocket barrel riding was, when you're riding on the rocket barrel, it's a little awkward to me. But other than that, it holds pretty true to that. It holds true to the same style, Retro Studios, has done a pretty good job with it. They are, just like, neverchris said, they're becoming, like neverchris said, they're becoming, Retro Studios is becoming one of his more favorite game companies out there, more favorite game developers, and I've come to like them already for their Metroid Prime games, and the fact they've done such a good job with, with Donkey Kong, they really have a lot of talent. And they've shown it pretty well. So anyway, that's my first candidate. That's number 5 right there. Number 4, I also agree with neverchris on, is Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors was a breath of fresh air to the franchise. It definitely needed this. The Wisp that you get as power may be a gimmick, but they're not like they're not overused, but still have a purpose to play. And so that makes it it was really genius on that part. Especially, and they don't really take away anything from the gameplay. In fact, they add to it, if anything. To the platforming and such, and even to the speed, and to the speed, the speed of the game. It definitely works very well in that regard. Now, probably the only problems I can think of it is that, like what Game King had said about it in his review, the controls can be a little sensitive at sometimes. Other times, they can feel in the 3 stages. I think neverchris made this point in his review of the game that they can feel a little stiff, but it's not enough to break the game. The game, the controls work very well. They're pretty fine-tuned, I have to say. For the most part. And it's overall, it's definitely redemption for Sonic. Sonic Team has redeemed themselves with this game. So good job. They finally figured out, going back to basics was probably the best thing for Sonic. I mean, hey, it worked for Mario. Now, next up, might be a little controversy behind it, but because of the kind of genre of game it is, but I like it anyway because it was one of the titles from 2010 that I was anticipating a great deal, and at least very early 2010 was back in January, and I have enjoyed it ever since I played it, and that is Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars. While it's probably not as big as Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in terms of characters, and probably not as wild as like in terms of the kind of the combined hyper combos you can do like in that, and like you can do in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It's not as wild in that. It's a little more, somewhat more toned down. This is still one awesome fighting game. And it's really amazing how they were able to simplify the controlling mechanics for this game, limiting it only down to 3 attack buttons. But, they did it without sacrificing depth. This game is quite deep, and, while the controls are definitely, easy enough for anyone to get into, there's enough, new techniques in this game that were added that even hardcore players can enjoy, and a lot of hardcore gamers who own a PS3 and 360 really want this game for that system. Only to have it, but it did until announcement of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came up. And I'm looking forward to it as well. But yeah, this is a really good game. Not many complaints I can find with it. I think still as an overall game, just as an overall game in general, I think Brawl is better. But I think as a fighting game, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom is superior just to the fact that it's a true fighting game. At least I can say that much. And it is one of the few fighting games, it's only one of 2. So far at this point, it's only one of 2 fighting games worth owning for the Wii, this and Brawl. And, because other fighters on the Wii at this point range anywhere from decent to rather pitiful, So, if you have a Wii and you like fighting games, and you're kind of tired of beating up on Mario, this is a great game. I would suggest picking it up. And, like I said, not many complaints I can find with it. It's just awesome. Next up, another choice of neverchris that I agree with him on. That's Super Mario Galaxy 2. While it doesn't use while I've mentioned in my comparison video between this and the first game, in that it doesn't use gravity quite as much and as quite as ingeniously as the first game did, it still has some very ingenious levels to it nonetheless. The levels are all great, they are robust. All the galaxies are just robust in the amount of imagination that there's going on in them. And I would say that's probably one of the it's always been a strength for Mario games, is that they always have unique level designs, and Super Mario Galaxy 2 does have some of the most unique. And I did mention that this game does have better unlockables than the first game, because you get some pretty cool stuff once you beat the game out, the first time around, and then second time around when you get the green star missions, and you just get probably better overall content. But yeah, it's lack of gravity situations, gravity-based gameplay is somewhat disheartening, but it's still good. This is still a fantastic game, probably one of the best on the Wii, and definitely enough to be put at number 2 on my list. So yeah, fantastic game. So what games at number 1 that I couldn't, where Super Mario Galaxy 2 couldn't beat it out? Well, that would be Super Street Fighter 4. Yep. This might also cause a little bit of controversy as well, but I really enjoyed this fighting game in every way. The combat system is great. The extra characters are very well added. They play very nicely with the current characters, and the roster is very well balanced. The addition of the second Ultra combo was was a good idea. You know, kind of harkening to the Street Fighter 3 idea. You know, selecting a super art. Yeah, very cool idea, and just offers a great experience in every way. I can't find, like with Tatsunoko versus Capcom, I can't find any real major faults with this game. You know, I think probably the only one I can think of is the final boss Seth is pretty cheap. No, he's not quite as bad as, like, say, Gil from Street Fighter 3 or Taboo from Brawl. You know, from the Subspace Emissary in Brawl. But yeah, he can definitely be a pretty cheap bastard, but you know, a lot of fighting games are known for having cheap, you know, final bosses, so I won't hold that against it too much. And overall, it definitely does take a great deal of skill, and if you got patience for it, you'll find this to be a very deep fighting game, one of the deepest ever. One of the deepest fighting games ever created, and it's just overall awesome. You know, one of the best games that I've had the chance to play. Definitely great, and probably makes #1 as my best game of 2010. But those are just my opinions. Let me know what you think, and yeah, post your comments below, like what your favorite games are, and or tell me what you think of my choices. You know, tell me what you think of what I chose, and hey, and we can discuss it friendly. You know, just don't flame me. You know, I just want to have a friendly discussion or debate. Anyway, that'll be all. This is Albedo238 saying, ciao.